Discover the incredible moment. Humble Maid wakes up to a touching breakfast after working 3 jobs. Maria stirred in her tiny bed, the dim light from the morning sun creeping through her window, mixing with the alluring aroma wafting from the kitchen. Today was supposed to be her day off, a rare blessing between the long, tiring shifts at the hotel, restaurant, and as a private housekeeper. The laughter of her young siblings reached her ears, a sweet symphony blending with the sizzling sounds of frying eggs and the delightful scent of sweet pancakes. Her heart swelled. This was more than just a simple breakfast. It was a tribute to all her sacrifices. Her mother's illness left her family fragile. With every sleepless night spent preparing school lunches and comforting her siblings, Maria's spirit flickered like a candle in a storm, battling against the weight of economic hardship. But here, in this moment of unexpected joy, the warmth of family enveloped her like a soft blanket. The kitchen was a chaotic masterpiece. Her younger siblings giggled, their little hands bustling with activity and creativity. She could picture it, the mess of flour on their faces and smiles lighting up the room. A sense of belonging swirled around her. Then suddenly, the peace shattered. The icy jingle of a doorknob intruded, and in marched Mr. Thompson, her wealthy employer, his expression tight and disapproving. Maria felt her heart drop. How could he? The banter and laughter faded, replaced by an oppressive tension that thickened the air. He held a clipboard, as if assessing their every movement. Is this what we pay you for, Maria? His voice cut through the joyful atmosphere like a knife, dripping with disdain. All this for a day off? You should be focusing on your work. Her siblings froze, confusion clouding their innocent faces. Maria's chest tightened. Here she was, a woman buried in the weight of her family's struggles, only to be belittled in the sanctity of her own home. Disrespect and assumptions hung in the air like a bitter fog. The love she felt for her family felt threatened in that moment. Should she stand up for herself, or let it go? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he stood there, looking down at her family's little celebration, Maria felt a spark ignite within her. A chance to speak up, to rewrite the narrative they had been forced to accept for so long. Her siblings, mouths agape, looked at her for guidance. This was a defining moment. Would she allow his prejudice to snuff out the light of her family's love? Tears stung her eyes as she took a breath, the warmth of their laughter echoing in her mind. Her heart raced, the fight swelling inside her. This is family, she declared fiercely, grounding herself. And we deserve respect, just like anyone else. In that instant, the lines of class began to blur. Would Maria find the courage to confront him? Would the love surrounding her be enough to reshape her reality? The air crackled with possibility, leaving a question that hung between them. What would happen when dignity and love collided in a society that too often ignored both? The silence in the room was palpable, the tension stretching like a taut string ready to snap. Mr. Thompson's eyes narrowed, scanning the faces around him. He looked at Maria, an expression of surprise mixed with irritation. Respect? He scoffed, his voice laced with disbelief. And what have you done to deserve it? You're just a maid, after all. Maria's breath caught, and her heart raced. The sting of his words hung in the air, a bitter reminder of how society viewed her and those like her. She wanted to shrink back, but couldn't. Not now. Not when the laughter of her siblings was still echoing in her mind, like a mantra urging her forward. They deserved to see a strong Maria, one who fought against the injustices that plagued them. Work does not define my worth, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I might be a maid in your eyes, but in this house, I am a sister, a daughter, and I am doing my best to care for my family. She gestured toward her siblings, who were now clutching their breakfast plates, their innocent eyes wide with concern for her. For a moment, the room felt electric. Her siblings exchanged glances, feelings of pride mixed with anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Maria was their shield. They depended on her strength. Mr. Thompson seemed taken aback, his bravado faltering for a heartbeat. But then, as if fishing for control, he thumped the clipboard against the table, sending an echo into the stillness. You need to remember your place, Maria. This is not a family matter. This is business. And business requires professionalism. Professionalism? She echoed, her voice rising. Is it professional to walk in here and belittle the people who serve you? I may be earning a living for my family, but I am still deserving of kindness. You think because you pay me, you own me. I'm not just a number on your payroll. I am a person. The words tumbled out, spilling the concealed emotion raging within her. Those around them could feel the shift. Her siblings whispered encouraging murmurs, their little hands squeezing each other for support. Mr. Thompson's face reddened. You'll regret this insubordination, he warned, though uncertainty flickered behind his steely facade. Maria lifted her chin, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fierce defiance. The only thing I regret is how easily I've let others define me. As she stood there, a wave of empowerment washed over her. For the first time, Maria felt the truth of her own strength. It wasn't just for her family, it was for herself. The atmosphere thickened with intensity, love and defiance wrapping around her like armor. Would Mr. Thompson retract his claws in the face of this uncommon bravery, or would he double down and push back harder? Maria's pulse raced at the thought. She felt ready to face anything, but there remained a sense of foreboding. While the moment hung in the balance, the blooming sense of victory felt fragile, a bubble waiting to burst. What consequences would her small act of defiance unleash? As the clock on the wall ticked softly, Maria's gaze held steady on her employer, a battle of wills unfolding. What would be the next move? Would the moment of truth shatter the silence, or would it forge an unexpected path forward? Mr. Thompson shifted in his seat, his gaze hardening, the weight of the room pressing down like a hot summer sun. You seem to forget your role here, Maria, he spat, annoyance dripping from his words. I will not tolerate this kind of behavior, not in my home. I suggest you reconsider how you speak to me. A chill crept into the air, mingling with the warmth of Maria's determination. She felt her heart race, yet she maintained her ground. Her siblings' eyes urged her to keep going, their faith building like a fortress around her. I am not going anywhere, Mr. Thompson, she fired back, her voice shaking slightly with the adrenaline of confrontation. I have worked too hard for too long to let anyone push me down. You might think I'm just a maid, but I am a person with dreams, love, and a family that depends on me. There was a pause, a heavy silence as he absorbed her words. For a fleeting moment, something flickered in Mr. Thompson's eyes, doubt, confusion, maybe empathy, but it vanished in the blink of an eye, replaced by a steely resolve. Very well, he said slowly, his voice low and dangerous. If you are so insistent on standing in my way, then I will show you the consequences of your actions. There are many ways to deal with insubordination, Maria. Her heart sank, but the fire inside her refused to die. You can try, she countered, her voice unwavering despite her fear. But know this, I refuse to let your threats control my life. At that moment, the tension in the room escalated, and her siblings clung to each other, eyes wide. They could see the uncertainty in Mr. Thompson's stance, but they also sensed the danger lurking beneath his bravado. Mark my words, Maria, he replied, leaning closer with an unsettling smile. You've just created a rippling effect that you cannot undo. A sudden knock interrupted the moment. The door swung open to reveal Mrs. Thompson, her expression curious but soon replaced with alarm as she read the room. What is happening here? She asked, her voice crisp with concern. Maria seized the opportunity, clouded by hope. I'm just standing up for what's right, Mrs. Thompson, she pleaded. I deserve respect, just like anyone else in this house. Mrs. Thompson's eyes darted between her husband and Maria, the tension cracking like thin ice beneath them. There was a flicker of understanding in her gaze, but also hesitation. Respect is a two-way street. Dear, she said slowly, her tone trying to mediate. Exactly, Maria encouraged, sensing a chance to bridge the gap. I'm asking for a basic human decency that is always expected but seldom given. The soft murmurs of Maria's siblings filled the room, a comforting reminder of why she stood her ground. But deep down, doubt flickered in her mind. Would this moment shift the power dynamics or push Mr. Thompson further into anger? Perhaps, Mr. Thompson interjected, rage simmering beneath his controlled demeanor. You should reconsider the kind of family you've chosen to defend. The air thickened with uncertainty again. Maria's pulse quickened. What choice would Mrs. Thompson make? Would she side with her husband, or could she be the ally Maria desperately needed? As the seconds ticked by, Maria felt every heartbeat echo in her chest, her future hanging in the balance. Would this turn of events lead her to freedom, or would it plunge her deeper into captivity? The stakes rose higher. Would bravery win out in the end, or would the cost be too great? Mrs. Thompson's gaze held a mix of confusion and fear as she processed the tension. The air thickened around them. Maria could almost hear her own heartbeat thundering, drowning out the silence. "Please, I just want what's fair," Maria implored, her voice steady but carrying an edge of desperation. How can this family be so blind to the needs of those who help keep it together? Mr. Thompson clenched his jaw, his rage barely contained. "You think you deserve respect? You think this home is built on ideals? It's my money, my rules." His voice boomed through the room, a storm ready to lash out. Maria stood her ground, fists clenched at her sides, her breath shallow but fierce. She wouldn't back down now, but Mrs. Thompson's hand reached out tentatively, emotion reflecting in her eyes. "Frank, let her speak," she said softly. "Perhaps we need to listen." The words seemed to cast a spell. Maria felt a flicker of hope stirring within her. Could it be? Mrs. Thompson was actually considering her side? Mr. Thompson shot his wife a look, a mix between disbelief and fury. "You want to throw away everything over a maid, Eleanor? Think of your children, of our reputation." Normally so composed, Mrs. Thompson hesitated, her brows knitting together. "But what are we if we ignore those who work for us? They have lives too. I can't stand by and watch someone suffer while we enjoy our privileges." Maria's heart raced at the potential shift in the room, pushing aside the fear curdling in her stomach. "Your compassion could break the chains that bind us all. Please, let us all be free." The silence of the moment held weight. Mr. Thompson seemed to hesitate, his ire still simmering but perhaps softened by the dawning understanding in his wife's words. In a voice barely above a whisper, Maria continued, "All it takes is for one person to stand up and choose kindness over power." The battle raged behind Mr. Thompson's eyes. His posture shifted slightly, caught between maintaining his authority and considering the fragile union he had with Eleanor. "Enough," he barked, breaking the growing tension. "This is my house. I make the rules. Do you really think a few words from a lowly maid will change anything?" Maria swallowed hard, but didn't retreat. "Maybe what needs changing is your heart." The words hung in the air, teetering on the edge of challenge and truth. The tension shifted once more, this time weighted with the question of consequence. "Frank, you need to see." Startled, Mrs. Thompson stepped closer, eyes pleading for some semblance of understanding from her husband. "It's not just about power, it's about making the right choice. No one cares about right choices in the real world." He spat, but there was a quiver in his tone now, a hint of uncertainty. Maria's breath caught in her throat. Could this be the moment that would break through his walls? Her siblings watched, eyes wide with fear and hope. Outside of the door, the world passed by, blissfully unaware of the storm inside. Maria felt the time stretch, a tug-of-war of emotions playing out right before her. The seconds trickled away, and she took a deep breath, preparing herself for whatever would come next. Would Mr. Thompson relent? Or would he double down, dragging them all into a deeper pit of despair? Amid the looming chaos, the hum of determination rose within Maria. But just as she thought clarity might break through the haze, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. All eyes darted toward the source of the sound. What now? A new threat loomed, threatening to shatter everything they had just fought for. Maria's heart raced, her mind flooded with dread as the crash echoed through the air. She could feel the tension snap, shifting from the charged atmosphere of confrontation to a fresh wave of uncertainty. Was something broken? Had someone been hurt? "Stay here," Mr. Thompson barked, moving to head towards the kitchen. Maria's instincts screamed at her to follow, to see what chaos had erupted, but she held her ground. She couldn't let the fight for dignity be washed away in the aftermath of an accident. What if it's one of the kids? Mrs. Thompson's voice trembled, her hand fluttering to her chest, panic gripping her features. Her resolve wavered, and Maria felt a pang of sympathy. This woman was caught in a whirlwind of loyalty to her husband, to her children, and now, to Maria. "I need to know," Maria exclaimed, stepping forward, but before she could reach him, Mr. Thompson shot her a look that could freeze fire. "No," he said, his authority booming again, yet softer this time, tinged with worry. "You're to stay put. You have nothing to do with this family's issues." Before she could respond, he disappeared through the kitchen doorway. Maria's heart pounded. What if this was the moment they all slipped into real chaos? She watched Mrs. Thompson, who stood frozen, every muscle in her body tense. Seconds dragged into eternity before they heard shouts from the kitchen. At first, they were muffled, chaos masked by walls. Then the frustration escalated, voices rising, a mixture of Mr. Thompson's raging tones and Mrs. Thompson murmuring, desperately trying to calm the storm. "What if someone's hurt?" Maria whispered, her insides twisting into knots. "Don't," Mrs. Thompson said, her face paler than ever. "Please let us hope it's nothing serious." But she looked uncertain, her eyes darting nervously towards the kitchen, as if she could guess what lay behind those doors. Suddenly, a figure emerged. It was Timmy, one of the younger children, his face streaked with flour and surprise. "Aunt Maria?" he exclaimed, clueless to the gravity surrounding their situation. "I made cookies. Want to see?" The innocent joy in his voice cut through the tension like sunlight piercing clouds. But Maria's heart sank. How could they focus on cookies when life itself felt so precarious? "Timmy, maybe now is not the best time," Maria replied gently. But she didn't want to extinguish his excitement. He had enough weight on his little shoulders with all that had happened around them. Just then, Mr. Thompson reemerged, eyes ablaze with frustration as he slammed a door shut behind him. "A broken pot. That's all it was." Maria released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. But the anger still radiated off Mr. Thompson. "You," he pointed, fixing his rage back on her. "This is your fault. You've stirred up too much unrest. First in our household, and now chaos in the kitchen." "No." Maria defended herself fiercely, her spirit rising. "I didn't bring chaos. I asked for respect, for fairness. We are all part of this family in different ways." "Family? You think you belong?" he mocked. "You don't belong at all." The hurt of his words cut deeper than she had anticipated, unraveling the flicker of hope she had been building. But she couldn't fold. "I may not belong in wealth and surname, but I've poured my heart into this home. Can't you see that?" In that swirling mixture of emotions, fear, fury, and a hint of awakening, Mrs. Thompson suddenly stepped between them. "Frank, stop. This isn't how we solve things. Maria is right. We need to listen to her." A heavy silence fell upon the room. All eyes turned on Mrs. Thompson, who stood trembling yet fiercely resolute. The moment hung like a fragile thread. Could this be the turning point where kindness eclipses power? With tension still simmering, Maria felt a flicker of hope reignite. But just as inspiration began to stir, a chilling sound echoed from the kitchen, cutting like a knife a shattering glass, followed by a scream. What had happened now? The scream pierced the air like an unspoken fear, and Maria's heart jumped into her throat. The room fell silent, the weight of uncertainty wrapping around them like a heavy shroud. She turned towards the kitchen, her body frozen in place, as if the floodgates of disaster hovered just beyond that threshold. "Timmy, go back upstairs," Mrs. Thompson urged, her voice strained as she reached for her youngest son's arm. He blinked up at her, confusion written all over his flour-dusted face. "Why? What's wrong?" he asked, his innocence a stark contrast to the chaos brewing around them. Just do as I say." Mrs. Thompson's eyes darted between Maria and the kitchen, cracking under the pressure. Maria felt the stirrings of defiance rise again. She had to know what was happening. "Please, let me check," she said, her voice steadying just enough to convey urgency. But before Mrs. Thompson could respond, Mr. Thompson stormed back into the room, his face a mixture of anger and fear. "Stay away from there," he thundered, but the fire was gone from his voice. There was only a flicker of concern beneath his bravado. Maria could see it in his eyes. "Frank," Mrs. Thompson said softly, stepping towards him. "If someone is hurt, no one is hurt," he snapped, though his tone betrayed a hint of doubt. "It was just a mess." But even as he spoke, Maria could see the guilt creeping into his expression. With a sharp inhalation, Maria pushed past the unease. It could be serious. Let me check. Ignoring Mr. Thompson's glare, she took a step towards the kitchen. In a heartbeat, Mrs. Thompson grasped her hand, her grip tight and trembling. You can't. You watch out. Timmy suddenly shouted, pointing towards the doorway. The urgency in his young voice shattered the thick tension, and without thinking, Maria jumped forward, propelled by instinct. Crouched on the ground in the kitchen, glass shards glinted in the light. The sight made Maria's stomach churn. A vase lay shattered, but the cause of the scream lay nearby. One of the older kids, Samantha, knelt alongside it, tears streaming down her cheeks alongside a crimson path where the glass had caught her skin. Sam! Maria rushed to her side, pushing aside the fear that threatened to engulf her. Blood dripped onto the already chaotic floor, the reality of the situation slamming into her. Why wasn't I careful? Samantha sobbed, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to make a mess. Breathe, Sam, Maria soothed, her mind racing. We just need to clean this up. You're going to be okay. But internally, she felt the weight of anxiety tighten around her chest. Call 911. Mr. Thompson shouted from the doorway, panic finally starting to seep into his tone as he moved to grab his daughter. It struck Maria how fragile this family was. Once so powerful, now quaking at the slightest disruption. We can't panic, Maria asserted, her heart pounding even as she reached for something to stem the bleeding. Get a towel. Anything, clean it up until help arrives. She needs us. In that moment, as Mrs. Thompson dashed to fetch a towel, Maria felt strangely connected. Here they were, all of them, tangled in the delicate fabric of family and chaos, knowledge bleeding into instinct, a true test of their strength. But even as they worked, doubt crept in. Would they come together or fracture further under pressure? Was this just one incident, a mere broken vase, or an unraveling of their carefully constructed lives? As Samantha began to calm under Maria's steady hand and Mrs. Thompson's concern, Maria caught Mr. Thompson's gaze. For the first time, she saw a flicker of realization wash over him. This wasn't just about authority or belonging anymore. It was about the family they wanted to build together. With sirens wailing in the distance, they knew something had shifted. But would this moment reveal the truth about who they really were? Behind the noise, a deeper storm brewed between them, tugging at their resolve. What would they decide to become next? Maria pressed her palms against the floor, the cool tiles grounding her as she applied pressure to Samantha's bleeding arm. You're going to be okay, Sam. Just focus on my voice, she said, feeling the tremor in her own hands, but keeping her tone steady. Mrs. Thompson rushed back, a towel clutched in her hands. As she knelt beside Maria, she whispered, Take it. You know what to do. Maria grabbed the towel, her heart racing, and pressed it against Samantha's arm. You're doing great. Just hold on, she urged. Samantha blinked through her tears, her eyes wide and vulnerable. In the chaos, Timmy sat on the floor, his little hands pulled close to his chest. What if she's gonna bleed forever? He asked, his small voice cracking. Mr. Thompson hovered in the doorway, desperation etched into his features. This shouldn't have happened. I should have been watching them, he muttered, pacing back and forth. Maria could see the internal turmoil, the mix of guilt and fear swirling in his eyes. Mrs. Thompson shot him a look that could have burned holes through the wall. It was an accident, Frank. Just help us, she snapped, her voice rising above the chaos for just a moment. The family dynamic she thought she understood was unraveling right in front of her. Here, let me. He knelt down, finally stepping in beside them. His fingers trembled as he took the towel from Maria's hands. Guilt flickered across his face like a candle in the wind. Samantha, I'm so sorry. As he applied pressure, Maria sensed the shift. It wasn't just about one broken vase. It was about the foundation of their family, vulnerable and cracked. The air thick with urgency allowed Maria to see their collective pain as if it were painted over every surface of their lives. Samantha's sobs softened, replaced by a shaky breath. It hurts, I know, Sam. I know, Maria murmured, willing strength into her voice. But help is coming. Just a little bit longer. Just then, the wailing sirens grew nearer. As the sound filled their ears, Maria felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Would the arrival of assistance mean a rescue or another division in their tight-knit family? Did every accident pull them further apart, or could they gather closer together in the unraveled threads of this moment? Timmy still looked lost, his innocent face drawn in worry. Are they going to be mad at us? He wondered aloud. This time, it was Mrs. Thompson who took a deep breath, wrapping her arms around her youngest son. No, no one is mad, sweetie, she whispered, holding him close. We just need to focus on Sam, okay? Maria watched this tender scene unfold. She realized their fragility was palpable and that in this unexpected moment, a new decision had to be made, one that could redefine their bond. Could they start to heal? As the paramedics burst through the door, bustling with energy and competence, Maria felt the energy in the room shift yet again. People moved, whispers of concern and gratitude filled the air. But among the chaos, Maria caught Mr. Thompson's gaze again. This time different, a shared understanding began to bloom. Together she whispered, the word hanging between them, a promise unspoken yet profoundly felt. But just as Maria opened her mouth to say more, she realized something, a new fear creeping in. What if this was only the beginning? What if they weren't equipped to handle more adversity? In that moment, the sirens faded, and an even deeper silence filled the room. What other storms awaited them? And would they have the strength to face them together? Maria watched as the paramedics quickly assessed the scene. Their voices were calm and controlled, a stark contrast to the chaos that had enveloped the Thompson home. She felt somewhat like an outsider, observing the well-coordinated dance of professionals who moved seamlessly to bring order back to the moment. Samantha's eyes locked onto Maria's, seeking strength in her friend's gaze. Maria wished she could communicate that everything would be okay, that the family turmoil would heal, but she felt her own uncertainty weighing heavily in her chest. You're going to be all right, Sam, she said again, though this time the words felt less certain. More like a fragile thread attempting to hold everything together. The paramedics bandaged Samantha's arm with practiced ease. Mr. Thompson remained by the child's side, his eyes darting between the wound and his daughter's face. Maria saw a new layer of desperation in his expression. This was more than regret. It was the ache of imperfection, the realization that life could turn sideways when least expected. Sam, I'm here, he soothed, desperately searching for comfort in his daughter's eyes. I'm so sorry. The words hung in the air, a plea, an apology, a promise. Daddy? Samantha whispered, her voice barely audible over the bustle. Will it hurt forever? Frank's heart sank. He swallowed hard, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. No, honey, just for a little bit. Just until they fix it. Behind him, Mrs. Thompson stood with Timmy attached to her hip. His little fingers curled tightly around her arm, and she stroked his hair, whispering to him softly. This isn't your fault, she reminded him, pulling him closer. Accidents happen, and we're going to be okay. Yet amidst the reassurances, Maria noticed true fear lingering in the corners of their home. The easy laughter and playful bickering that once filled this space had been replaced with uncertainty. What if this incident is just the start? Once the paramedics finished, they calmly explained that they would take Samantha to the hospital for further evaluation. Maria felt a jolt of panic at the thought of her friend being taken away. She grabbed Samantha's hand. I'll come with you, Sam. You won't be alone. Samantha managed a weak smile, but the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Okay, she whispered. The family clustered together as the paramedics wheeled Samantha out. It felt surreal, watching them leave, like a piece of their family was being taken away. As they disappeared through the doorway with Samantha in tow, Maria turned back to the Thompsons. Mr. Thompson's shoulders were slumped, a tired admission of his shortcomings. He glanced at his wife, whose eyes were red, betraying the worry she held inside. I'm so sorry, Frank muttered again, this time to his wife. I wasn't careful enough. Mrs. Thompson took a deep breath, her hand squeezing her husband's tight. We'll get through this, I promise. We have each other. But Maria felt the depth of his despair. She knew families didn't always come back together easily. The threads of connection, once strong, were fraying today. The silence in the room hung heavy as the air vibrated with unspoken words. Maria wanted to reach out, to say that they could rise from the ashes, stronger than before. But as she considered their pain, She wrestled with her own feelings of inadequacy. Could one accident redefine them all? Sometimes, she began hesitantly. The hardest moments lead to the greatest changes, but her voice trailed off as she realized it might take more than a hopeful sentiment to mend the fractures. As the front door swung gently on its hinges, Maria sensed the weight of what lay ahead. Would they really be able to come back together after this? Just then, the evening sun dipped lower, casting long shadows in the doorway. A silence lingered lingering like a question, one that echoed through every corner of their home and perhaps every corner of their hearts. What would it take to stitch their family back together after this? Maria stood at the threshold, her heart racing as a surge of emotions swept through her. She watched as the paramedics rounded the corner, their pace steady and purposeful. Her mind fluttered with memories of laughter and warmth that had once filled the Thompson home. Now, it felt chilly and strained, a shell of what it used to be. "Can I help with anything?" she finally whispered, breaking the thick silence that had taken root. Mrs. Thompson glanced at her, weary but grateful. "Just be here," she murmured, her voice choking slightly. "That's enough." Maria stepped into the living room, the space now marked by uneasy shadows and lingering fear. Timmy was fidgeting, his little face scrunching up as he tried to process everything happening around him. She knelt beside him, forcing a smile despite the gnawing dread in her stomach. "Want to draw something for Sam?" she suggested, nudging the pile of colored pencils on the coffee table. He blinked up at her, his eyes full of confusion, and then nodded slowly that yes, he began marking on a fresh piece of paper. Maria's thoughts drifted to Samantha. How was she? Was she scared? The hospital had to be a terrifying place for a child. Outside, the sky darkened, and raindrops began to tap gently against the window. Each one felt like a reminder of the sorrow overhead. Maria's fingers drummed nervously on her knees. She longed to see Samantha's smile again, to reassure her that everything would be all right. Frank remained seated, staring off into space, while Mrs. Thompson tried to comfort Timmy. The strain on their faces was palpable, and yet no words were necessary. They were all caught in a web of shared pain. What would happen when Samantha returned? Would they fall back into their old rhythm, or would the shadows of this moment linger, etching themselves into their lives forever? Then, without warning, the door swung open, and the soft sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. All heads turned, but it was only one of their neighbors, Mrs. Perkins, bringing over a casserole. "I heard about the accident," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Just wanted to bring something." Her kind gesture had the power to stir the still air. For a moment, Maria watched as Mrs. Thompson's face softened with gratitude, the warmth of community breaking through the coldness that had settled in. "Thank you," Mrs. Thompson managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "We really appreciate it." Maria felt a renewed flicker of hope. Moments like this reminded her how crucial connection could be during tough times. The small act of kindness rippled through the room. As neighbors came and went, dropping off meals and offering support, the heaviness began to lift suddenly. They weren't facing this alone. Hours later, just as Maria was about to leave, the door creaked open again. This time, it was Samantha's small shape, walking slowly, holding onto her father's hand for support. Maria's heart leaped in her chest. Samantha looked tired but relieved to be home. "I'm back," she said simply, and the room brightened at her return. Mrs. Thompson rushed to her daughter, sweeping her into a hug as tears streamed down her face. "You're here. Oh, my baby," but as Maria watched them embrace, a tight knot formed in her throat. Could this really mark a turning point for the Thompson family? Could they overcome the scars this accident would leave behind? Samantha pulled back, glancing around the room, her gaze settling on Timmy's drawing. "What's that?" she asked, curiosity pulling her out of the momentary sadness. "It's you. And me," Timmy shouted, excitement suddenly bubbling up from him. The change in atmosphere felt like a spark, igniting the energy in the room, even just for a moment. In that instant, despite the shadows, they seemed like a family again, fragile but intact. Maria felt warmth bloom in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, they could stitch their lives back together, even after everything they had faced. But as the family began to share stories of their day, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that a deeper transformation was needed. Could they truly embrace the changes to come, no matter how difficult? And as she left their home, a fresh storm brewing in the distance, the question loomed heavy in her mind: what lay ahead for the Thompsons? The days rolled into a week, every sunrise revealing the delicate dance of healing within the Thompson home. Maria felt it in the air, a cautious optimism, almost like the first golden rays of dawn breaking through a thick fog. Samantha was still recovering, but laughter hung in small doses around the kitchen, threading its way through everyday routines like an old, familiar melody. Maria visited daily, bringing soup and off-key lullabies, knitting those invisible ties of friendship tighter. Timmy would burst into giggles, his little hands crafting drawings to cheer up Samantha, and Mrs. Thompson's eyes sparkled with renewed hope as she watched her children interact. Each moment felt guarded yet precious, as if the family was learning to reclaim the joy that had been dimmed by chaos. Yet Mr. Thompson's turmoil still simmered beneath the surface. When he wandered into the living room, his shoulders sagged under the weight of guilt like 1,000 bricks. He watched his family, his love for them palpable, yet the fear of what they could lose still gripped him like cold steel. One evening, with a storm brewing outside, he gathered his family around the table for dinner. Maria busied herself, setting dishes, but felt the tension creeping back, a familiar shroud that threatened to stop their progress. As everyone silenced, she could almost hear each heart beating, doubts and fears unspoken swirling between them. "Sam, how are you feeling?" he asked tentatively, seeking some grounding in his daughter's eyes. "I'm okay, Dad," Samantha smiled, but her softer tone suggested more than the words she spoke. Timmy chimed in, and we drew our feelings together. "See." He held up a crayon-colored masterpiece that depicted the family bright colors, happy faces. Maria felt that familiar swell of warmth, sensing the breakthrough that could blossom from this very moment. Mr. Thompson drew in a deep breath. "I'm sorry for everything that happened before, for the way I treated you all," he began, his voice shaking. "I thought being strong meant being in control, but I've realized that we're only strong together as a family." Mrs. Thompson squeezed her husband's hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "It's about honesty too, about sharing what we feel. I've been just as lost," she added softly. Maria watched, touched by the vulnerability washing across the table. This was the transformation she longed to see. "Accidents happen and we grow from them," Frank continued, pulling his family closer. "I need you all to know how much you mean to me. I want to be a better father, a better man. But I can't do it alone." The room fell into a hush, but only for a moment. Timmy broke through the silence with his innocent fervor. "Can we make cookies tomorrow?" Laughter bubbled up, washing away the heaviness. Maria felt a bittersweet sense of triumph. Perhaps this simple gathering could mend the delicate fabric of their lives. Days melted into moments of warmth, laughter punctuating the home. The tradition of cookie baking morphed into a family ritual where they took turns sprinkling flour, gathering around the kitchen, and sharing stories, little pieces of their lives weaving into the memories of healing. Maria's heart swelled as she saw the shifts in everyone, melting the icy barriers they once wore proudly. In those moments, they conversed simply and honestly, articulating worries or joys, learning to lean on one another as life unfolded unpredictably. That on one particularly sunny afternoon, Maria watched the Thompson family from outside their lively home, the sound of laughter painting vibrant strokes on her heart. She felt like a proud guardian angel, a witness to their growth. She couldn't help but smile when Mrs. Thompson approached her. "Come in," Mrs. Thompson called, her voice filled with welcoming warmth. Maria hesitated but felt the pull of connection. She entered. The kitchen was alive with the aftermath of floury chaos and sweet scents. That day, they didn't see her as simply the maid. She was woven into the fabric of their lives, part of the family tapestry being stitched anew. "Help us make dinner tonight," Frank suggested playfully, his smile a radiant beacon of change. They stood together, chopping and mixing, laughter ringing as they recounted playful kitchen disasters. Maria caught Mr. Thompson's eye, the spark of genuine respect passing between them, and in that moment, she knew they had crossed a divide. As night fell, and they gathered for dinner. Maria felt the essence of family encapsulated in every shared bite, in every laughter echoing around the table. Frank's words floated in the air, each one a promise of growth, of respect, of love. Their home felt vibrant, resilient like a flower blooming against all odds. With every meal, every conversation, they were not just healing but transforming, piecing together a shared legacy that warmed the heart like the comforting glow of flickering candlelight. Before she left that evening, Maria paused at the door, turning back to the Thompsons, her heart full. Perhaps this was what it meant to be a family, to stand together through storms and be willing to grow amidst the chaos. Their journey was far from perfect, yet there was something beautiful in that imperfect bond. As Maria stepped back into the cool night air, a renewed sense of purpose filled her. They had come through the dusk into a new dawn. With a smile, she whispered to the wind. Together, to those following along, don't let this story end here. You need to subscribe now and become part of our growing family. Leave a like now to support the journey and feed the algorithm. Comment below your feelings about this incredible transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this warmth and connection. Only true fans understand the importance of sharing. Let's spread this love.